and listening to Swamiji sing it right now. I hope that those of you online could hear it. I imagine it was wired such that you could. But particularly the way he says it, look into my eyes, they will mutely say, I will be thine always. It's such a beautiful line, and there are times where I've listened to it when he's chanting it, because he just has a way of bringing such, it's pure love in that line is what it is. My mind was just grasping for what is that feeling exactly, but such pure divine love when he says that. And you at least I do, but I think everyone probably experiences, the line is, look into my eyes, they will mutely say, I will be thine always. And the way he says it, it's just so beyond words that it feels, you're drawn into the silence that you're invited into. So thank you, Lakshmi. Lakshmi, I hear a little feedback.
Would you mind if I switch to a country bit?
No, please come, or I think if I move this away, just...
Do you want to pray and we can start off, get it set up, and then...
Okay, we'll pray and then we'll change mics and we'll get rid of this sound. So let's just sit up straight and bring our awareness to the point between the eyebrows, and let's pray, drawing in the energy from just those few moments of chanting with Swamiji. It was just transforming to go from chitter-chatter to that chant. So let's pray with it. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, our beloved Guru Deva, Paramhansa Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, beloved Swamiji, we humbly bow before you all. Divine Mother, lead us with your courage, with your willingness, such that we can encounter all changes, seeing always the opportunity for spiritual growth. Help us to never stagnate, to never wish things could stay as they are, but to rather see your hand in everything, knowing that whatever comes our way, even if we are surprised by it, it is always for our highest spiritual good. Let us feel your love. And allow it to flow through us into this world, blessing us and blessing all. Om Shanti. Amen. Okay. Are we on?
Yep.
Makes it feel like an actual big production. Which it's not. I I think while Lakshmi walks back there, because we're going to listen to a song. But before that, let me just read the reading for this week. We are on day 6 of Secrets of Prosperity. And it says, the secret of prosperity is working with, not against, life's changing rhythms. Working with and not against life's changing rhythms. Sounds easy, doesn't it? That's what I thought when I read it. So let's listen to some music, then we'll meditate for just a couple of minutes, and then we'll move on.
The green summer fade and winter draw near. My Lord, in your presence I live without fear. Through tempest, through snows, through turbulent of your hand is my strength and my guide. I ask for no riches that death can destroy. I crave only thee, your love and your joy. I ask for no riches that death can destroy. I crave only thee, your love and your joy. The dancers will pass, the singing must end. I welcome the darkness with you for my friend. The green summer fade and winter draw near. My Lord, in your presence I live without fear. Through tempest, through snows, through turbulent tide, the touch of your hand is my strength and my guide. I ask for no riches that death can destroy. I crave only thee, your love and your joy. I ask for no riches that death can destroy. I crave only thee, your love and your joy. The dancers will pass, the singing must end. I welcome the darkness with you for my friend.
Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Amen. Could I ask you to do me a favor? Today in our staff meeting, at the end of our staff meeting, I read The Secret for tonight because I was trying to, for once, be ahead of time and not just walk in and surprise Lakshmi. Usually I walk in, 10 minutes before class and I say, could you find the best version of whatever the song is? She always does. She does do always the best. But I said, let's try, out loud to this whole set, I said, let me try and just get ready at a time. So I read The Secret, just like that. Sai Ganesh says, I live without fear. I read it. He said, just almost before the Secret was done. And I didn't listen to it. Of course, I've heard it. Hundreds, if not 1,000 times in my life. But he was exactly right. And the thing that I just realized is I love this song. Probably everybody does. It's sort of an easy song to take in. But tonight, I just had the experience, and it's perfect about change. It just talks throughout the whole song about all of what can change. And then it says, I live without fear. The touch of your hand is my strength and my guide. It's nothing in the material world, he's saying. It's nothing out here. It's really being in touch with you, God, that lets me go through life. It's beautiful. But it has a little bit of a, not melancholic, but, just, I don't know even what the right word is. It's calming and it's beautiful, but it's inward. It's just a certain energy about it. But tonight, I felt how much joy is in this song. And I just had this feeling listening to this 2-minute-long song. How much joy Swamiji must have felt when it came through, when he first got to hear it. It is really a beautiful song. It was just perfect. So, the secret for tonight, which is really quite simple in many ways. I just want to pull it up again. Because no matter how many times I read these things, I forget. It's a 2-liner here. It says, working with, not against, life's changing rhythms. So it's just saying, whatever comes, whatever changes in life, whatever we are asked to come up against, or whatever presents itself is a better way of saying that, work with it. Don't let anything in you be against it, because, of course, you will not just feel more expansive, but, in fact, even just the way energy works and the way it works in our astral spine, that karmically, nothing can happen in our life, ever. We all know this, ever, that isn't exactly perfect for our spiritual upliftment, if we can meet it there. And of course, everyone knows we're not always the best at meeting it in that way. It's not just like rolling over the next wave. And, when you're swimming out into an ocean, and when you're out beyond the crash of the waves come and you just go up over it, and somehow you make progress and you get out into the ocean. The entire force is coming in, but when you can ride the waves out like that, you make progress. And I feel like Swamiji is speaking to us and has always taught us that's exactly what comes. It sort of has to happen because of our own magnetism. No matter what we'd like it to be, no matter what we think, no matter what we think we want or what we think we need, we are purely magnetic beings. So way beyond our mind, we are drawing to ourselves exactly what our energy can work with next. So it's a perfect setup. It's just that we resist it, of course. And Master says here somewhere, I have a lot of their writings on just the word change. It's amazing. But he basically says, all of the pain that you ever feel in life is due to one thing and based on a second thing. He doesn't say it like this, but it's what he's saying. The one thing is, whenever we want things to be different than how they are, we're in pain. It's painful. And when we don't want things to be different, when we're just going with it, we're not in pain. And what makes us want things to be different is our attachment to having things be a certain way. And I don't have this quote in front of me because I think I saw it a couple of Sundays ago when I was giving service. But Master says our attachments are the death of our spirit. And it's just right. I mean, he says it just like that. This is not just the hardest thing, it is really what kills us, in a way, is all of what we're attached to. Now, excuse me, this is why I don't like this thing, but let me see if I can fix it. Let's try this. I was thinking about this today because whoever comes to this class, almost always, they're people who have been on the path for a long time. It doesn't draw any new people ever, which is sort of interesting to me now that I say it, but it's true. I mean, even when there's more people in the room, there are always people who have been around a long time. And I said to Lakshmi on the way in here tonight, I said, everything Master and Swamiji wrote about change, as I go through the Ananda library, there's a huge wealth of articles, books, chapters, affirmations on change. It's so deceptively simple. It's one of those things, and I'll read you some of them, where you read it, and I know I've said this, I say this a lot, but it's just simply true. You say to yourself, I know that. And we do. Up here, we do. But if we knew it, like really knew it, we would never be, there would be no attachment, there would be no wishing anything was different than what it is, and change would not be difficult. So we know it intellectually, but it's very different than taking it in. And I'm going to eventually, as I said, not quite yet, I will read you quite a few things that a Master himself wrote about change in a beautiful article that Jyotish wrote, which is really, he's pulled in everything, so much of what I read that Master and Swamiji said. Of course, it came through Jyotish, so it's said in his way, but still, there's like 15 things we're going to say about change. But it's pretty remarkable how much we still need to go through. I mean, even at this stage on the path, how much we still resist change or resist what comes to us that is ours. So we're not always just riding over the waves and that, it's so beautiful. You know what I'm talking about when you watch like surfers, particularly on a surfboard, because you can see it so much more clearly. This huge wave, all of that force of water is coming in. It's just such a perfect analogy for life. And they're just out there paddling like this, and then their surfboard just goes up and over and down and up and over. And it's really what we're doing. We're paddling against the waves. But if we get in tune with what that wave is coming to show us or to bring us, it's a beautiful dance with all of that energy and all of that force, we still get to keep, I would say, moving forward, but it's not really forward on the path, is it? It's up and sort of it's much more expansive notion. It's not linear at all. But we just do. We resist change. We don't want it. And that wonderful phrase of Master's, and he says somewhere in all of my notes, he says, I've always tried to say to people, what comes of itself, let it come. And we've all heard that. I know everybody in this room has heard that. But it's complicated. It's very complicated. The other night I had a very difficult experience. Excuse me for a minute. No, I'll just keep fighting with it. But what I would love for you to do, excuse me, everybody, is my phone is on in my purse and it's calling me. Thank you. Where was I? Oh, my challenging experience. How interesting that I would forget. But what happened was I was at home, sort of minding my own business, literally. And I got to leave out a lot of this story because I don't want it to be recognizable at all. But I got first an email and then a phone call, not from anybody in our community, that was filled. I mean, filled. I don't think anything like this has ever happened to me, with rage, pure rage, accusing me of, when you're talking a lot, you're teaching a lot, you're whatever, you have big visibility, and it's very easy to become a target. So actually for a relative stranger, which is what was happening. And so it was rageful, and it was truly violent. It was just like somebody came up and just sucker punched you and then just kept, that's what it felt like energetically, kicking you. But I was trying to decide what to do with this email. Like, are you sure you have the right person? And my cell phone rang, and I picked it up, and it was that person who then let forth with a barrage of just horribleness. I couldn't exaggerate. I've never said most of the words that came out of her mouth. I never would. Calling me these names and swearing at me. And after about less than a minute, I realized that the person was probably really in a drunken stupor, rage, and I just hung up on them. I just stopped the phone call. More emails came, but anyway, why I'm saying it to you is because it absolutely shook me. I went into this state where I was so anxious and so upset, and they were threatening me with lawsuits. And so the thought came about a lawsuit, but more than that, I so represent Ananda, and would they go after Ananda? That's immediately it came to me. And I think for at least an hour, I could not calm myself down. I called a friend in the community to share what had just happened and say, what should I do? Should I write back? I knew better because, somebody's that drunk, they're that drunk. And anyway, it was absurd what happened. There was no argument against it. It was just like otherworldly. And then finally, after about an hour, and I tried to meditate, which was impossible, but I did have a little discussion with Master. And then Barry said to me, you look like you're feeling a little better. And I said, I am. I felt like my heart rate calmed down. And I was filled with fear, is really what happened, filled with fear. I don't know how to put it into words because maybe I've had that experience before, but I don't even remember if I did. And then he said to me, honey, you know, there's nothing here. It's like smoke. There's no basis for any lawsuit. There's nothing that they can do. There's nothing here. And when I heard him say that, I thought, that's right. I mean, there was nothing there, but it spooked me. Well, the reason I'm saying it to you is because I had no control in that hour. I was trembling. I was pressured. I was just honestly beside myself. And later I thought, here I am, so many years of meditating, so many years of practicing staying centered, so many years of waiting, just not waiting, but whatever comes, this practice of what comes of itself, let it come, and just to stay in my center with that, knowing nothing can come that's not for me, nothing can really hurt me, because we're all manifestations of pure divine energy. What can hurt that? But all of that left for an hour. So I'm saying, when Master and Swamiji talk about change, and they say something like, most of the stress and pain associated with change is the result of wishing that things were other than they are. Learn to accept life, and much of the anxiety associated with change will disappear. Now, that sounds very simple to me. Sounds like something I've been hearing, reading, studying, practicing. You go, oh, of course. Till somebody calls you screaming and yelling on the phone. And it doesn't even have to be that dramatic. And so I was saying to Lakshmi, these are so deceptively simple. Swamiji says, as devotees, we should always try to use change as a means of growth. The goal of the yogi is not to avoid change, but to use every event to become free from attachment and ultimately from all ego identification. And it doesn't sound, it's not new, but it's so deep when you read that. It's so deep. And when they're talking about change, they're talking about not just big, huge, obvious changes like in the world, like a change in your job, or certainly getting fired, getting let go would be something like this. How can we maintain equanimity? And Swamiji says to us in this secret, when you can, no matter what the event, then you feel prosperous. I mean, he doesn't just say, it'll feel good. He's saying this is a secret of spiritual prosperity, is to learn in all circumstances to be able to do this. One of the worst traps is to let change throw you into a mood. I mean, when I read that today, but it wasn't quite a mood the other night. I mean, it was just a totally uncontrolled reaction, but it was certainly not one of equanimity. I mean, it took me down. It was very powerful, and it was really humbling later. That's what later that night, when I could sit and meditate, that's what I was meditating with, is, okay, you just keep staying with me and keep helping me, because I saw, and I'll say it like this because it feels this way in hindsight, how relatively easily I was thrown off. It was dark and mean and violent, and I mean, again, just the language, just the vibration of the language, but still was relatively easily thrown off. And yet we see what just happens. And I was thinking tonight when I said to Kamala Devi, who came here. You can't see her, those of you online. She's right over there ironing. She's ironing a lot of the costumes for our school play that's coming up. She had told Asha that she would come and help, so she was going to be up in our choir loft, really is what it is, I think, ironing. But I said to her, no, just come on down. And as it was unfolding, and she said, wouldn't it be distracting? And I said, no. I mean, I just wanted her energy here with us. But then I was thinking, with all that I'm aware that I can't do, look how much we just flow through. And my mind tripped back to lectures during medical school or in university, and I thought, how many people would say, come on, bring your ironing board in and just join us and iron? I mean, we do a lot of this pretty easily, this fluid, what comes of itself. Okay, you need to iron and you want to be in the class, bring the iron into the class. It's so easy for us. It's so easy for us to be adaptive, and compared to the rest of the world, it's great. And yet still, I was allowed to see where that limitation was and how quickly I could be thrown off. I'm just going to read a little more and then we'll see whatever anybody else has to say. A few more of these quotes. I don't know who says this, Master Swamiji, but it's part of that. One of the worst traps is to let change throw you into a mood, which again, think of how quickly it does. I keep doing these parenthetical comments, but for those of you online, our friend Rita is sitting here. And maybe 6 weeks ago, about 6 weeks ago, she was just walking home from work and a Stanford student made a left turn into her. She was a pedestrian. Obviously, she was knocked down. And it turns out that she fractured a clavicle and she really shattered her pelvis. And it was a huge deal. I was away in a seclusion when her husband, not in a seclusion, but a little quiet few days of vacation, when he texted me. And I thought, wow, this is just going to be huge, a shattered pelvis. It is huge. It is. But when I went to see Rita for the first time in the hospital, I said to her, it's amazing that you had the wherewithal. There must have been a huge force because her bones shattered. That doesn't happen easily. To tell this driver, the young woman who I think stayed and really cooperated, to give her Stephen's phone number and say to call Stephen. And she said, Rita said to me, lying in the hospital as she was, after surgery, with bolts and screws, as she just said, holding her together from her clavicle down through her pelvis. And she said, oh, that wasn't the first call I made. And I said, what was the first call? She said, I called Master. Just to have that practiced, magnificent response. I'm hit by a car, I'm down on the ground. Master. And I will say, for the whole time that she was in the hospital, filled with joy, emanating joy. It just overflowing. So many in this path have practiced this, and you just see how much progress we're making. That's a pretty remarkable and unusual response. And it was not a mood. No moods there. And then Master says, moods take away your objectivity and ability to act and to master the lessons that this school of life gives you. And it's just true. Think of it. When we get whatever the mood is, angry, reactive, fearful, we're out of the center of things. We're out of the vibratory flow that would allow us to learn to uplift and transmute energy that could come from the experience, but instead we're in a mood which totally blocks that. Now again, this is all in relation to change, but that's a powerful knowing. It doesn't exactly tell us how not to have a mood, but it reminds us so that next time when we react by being just kicked into a mood, it might come up, you do not want to be doing this because you are preventing that which has been offered to you as a vehicle for spiritual change, for spiritual transformation. Your mood is getting in the way. Just like before, I said the attachment to wanting things to be different than how they are. That is all of what we bring. That is all of what the ego is not just telling us, but it's directing the show until we, through practice, through meditation, certainly through chanting, through listening to Swami Kriyananda chant and then sing that song, something shifts in our astral spine. And as it shifts, we begin to free up energy. So the avoidance of these things, and I've said this many times, so everybody in this room has heard it, but Jyotish has said many times, and I remember in counseling a couple of times when he said it to me, even when I went to him for advice about counseling somebody else, he said the most important thing is as soon as you see, in several instances we were talking about a desire, different than a mood, but same thing for a mood. As soon as you feel it, that's it, stop it. Very hard because it has a hold on you and you want to go into the mood. You really do most of the time. I mean, honestly, Rita was totally blessed with moments of divine grace, and she opened to it because very often we want to experience and sort of bask in the suffering. We do. It's part of the human condition. But Jyotish was saying, no, the minute you, well, Master is the one who said it, but Jyotish repeats it for us a lot. The minute you feel a mood starting, the minute you feel the kind of resistance that we can have, stop it. What is trying to happen here? What comes of itself, let it come. Go through changes in life, whatever they are, welcoming the energy of that change to be part of, because as I was saying before, we've magnetized it. We need it. So to welcome it, and we really do have to practice this. We have to constantly remind ourselves. There's a very beautiful, I'm going to just close this as soon as I say this one thing, because actually, as it turns out, we may do the next class, because there's a lot. I didn't think there was anything here, but there's a lot here. But one of the things that Master talks about in one of his discipleship courses is a phenomenon that I naively have shared. I will not be able to pull up his exact description of it. I wish I could. But I've said it enough that most of you have heard it, that in the practice of seeing God in everyone, and I've spoken about it very often and clearly about this practice with Barry, my husband, that I practiced, I'm still practicing, for years. Every time I look in his eyes, I will see Divine Mother or Master looking back at me. So what happens is, of course, that feels better to him. Somebody's looking at him seeing God. That's wonderful. But for me, it brings me closer and closer and closer to God. The more that I can see God in anyone when I'm with them or in any circumstance, the more we get to be with God, as opposed to struggling as if that shouldn't be happening, as if Barry should be behaving differently than he is in the moment, always wanting things to be different than how they are. And it's so different when you say, Master, there you are. Look at you. You're being so grumpy right now. Master, why are you looking angry? But it's Master. So you feel you love him and you feel God's love flowing through you, connecting with him. So what looked like hard work to begin with becomes a magnificent opportunity to lift ourselves into the love of God. And what Master says is the more that we can practice that with experiences in our life, if we let it go a few seconds, we've lost the battle, because that's how strong the ego is and Satan is. Once we let them in, once we think about it, should I? Shouldn't I? Too late. It wins. It just wins. It's such a powerful force of all crazy things. You would think that the desire to be in love would be stronger, but the truth is, very often it's not. So we fret and we pout and we get angry and we talk about why something should have happened differently than it did. And Master just says, quit doing that. Quit doing that. Practice this, and as you begin to feel how much of God's love you feel in the process of seeing that, what comes of itself, let it come. It's this pithy little phrase that we repeat all the time, but it's so powerful. Once we really see the truth in that, we just keep seeing God everywhere. Once there's no resistance to things changing or being some way that we think they shouldn't be, then we are in that place of perfect love of the divine. It's powerful and it's deep, and it started out with just sentence after sentence of what I thought was nothing. I'm going to come back to this in 2 weeks when we do, but it's 10:08, and I'd like to stop and just hear stories or comments if there are any, or whatever anybody feels to say. You know, I'm going to have to, there's a Lakshmi's coming with something. We lost the questions, Mike, because of the play.
No, it's on. Okay.
Just give us 1 moment. Are you Mike?
I think it's, can you hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just love everything you're sharing, Shanti. There's different things came to mind. One I'll jump right to is a story that Kirtani told of her experience with Swamiji when one morning in Assisi, he was just so physically, clearly challenged, not feeling well, and she couldn't help it, right? Her heart went out to him, and she started to say, "Oh, Swamiji," right? Why, I could look in your face exactly like she told us when she told the story, she wanted to say, why does Divine Mother let this happen, right? And before she could finish her sentence, he said, "Stop. Do not say it. Don't say it." And it caught her by surprise, because in her mind, she was offering compassion, offering love. He said, "What Divine Mother sends, I accept." Period. Right?
Beautiful story.
Yeah.
I have heard it, maybe from you, but it's such a beautiful, but even when he says, "Stop," it's like, don't say, nope, don't finish it. I love that.
You have, okay. So your story, thank you so much for that. Well, I'll just share this. So, and I think I told you this, Shanti, I don't talk about it very much, but in my 20s, I had what I really do feel was a spiritual dream. It was an unusual dream, but in the dream, this is before I knew yoga, but I didn't even know to call it the astral world, but I'm sure that's in my dream what it was. I was with a man who looked like a doctor in a white suit, and we were in a morgue, but it was very pristine and clean, and there were hundreds of corpses, right? And he said, he was my teacher. I knew in my dream he was my teacher, and he said, every person in this room, right, thinks that you are their enemy. And he said, they are convinced that you've hurt them in some way, right? And you haven't. They're wrong. They're incorrect about this, but they feel it. And he said, and I was like, okay. And he said, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to awaken them. And your role, you can't do anything to change their perspective because you didn't do anything to cause it. And I said, okay. And he goes, you understand? I go, yeah, I understand. So he touches one body, right? And the man opens his eyes, looks at the doctor, is calm, sees me, and goes into a rage. And just has rage at me. I mean, I could see I am the worst human being in his eyes. All my energy rose up to be like, oh, I immediately wanted to, how do I fix this? Right? I didn't, but before I could respond, he touched the man again, he goes back. And the teacher looked at me and he said, did you notice your reaction? Like, yes, I did. He said, that's your practice. No reaction.
That is so powerful.
Isn't it?
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And your story, I was like, there it is, that's it. Like, wow. Yeah.
You know, when this happened the other night, and as I said, I really was not in my right mind. And it was just, anyway, it was such a huge onslaught of darkness, but in a big, violent, scary way. When I got off the phone, I paced for about 10 minutes, and I had started to write this response. I'm sharing it because, and Barry walked into the room. He was really trying to help me, for those of you that don't know. I mean, first of all, we've been together now almost 38 years, and he cares a great deal about me, but he's also a clinical psychologist. And he started saying to me, honey, whatever you decide you want to do, you'll do. But can you just let it go for 10 minutes? And I felt how hard that was. Now, I was just writing an email that was saying, I don't know who you're confusing me with. I would never do, what, blah, blah, blah. And he said, I'm not telling you don't write it. I'm saying don't write it right now. Because, I was like, blah, 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 I was like about to hit send. So I said, okay, in my mind, I'm saying, you can send it in 10 minutes. It'll still be good. So I sat with it for 10 minutes, and then I felt like I needed to call David Praver, who's, I think people who are watching know, but he's another spiritual director here, and a very, always sort of logical, most of the time, well, always, I would say, very logical thinker. And I count on that from David. So I told him what had just happened. And he was saying to me, you need to be thoughtful about how you respond, both for you and Ananda. Of course, I already knew that. So I felt myself getting a little impatient with him. And then I said, here's what I'd like to say. And I said 2 sentences. He said, well, if you could keep it to that, I could feel his doubt, which he had good reason to doubt, because when do I ever keep it to that? He said, you could send it, but you might ask yourself why. And then we just left it. I got off the phone. I was sort of too antsy to even stay in the same place. But very quickly it came to me. There's nothing in it for me to answer except wanting to defend myself, and that it was purely egoic. I mean, that just came to me, because when he said, but why? He didn't actually mean that. He meant, what good would it do out there? He was seriously asking that question. But what it triggered in me is what you came to in your story, how always our reactions in the world, always, I mean, like any reactions like this, they're ego-driven, and they don't serve us, and they never do any good. It is not the way to, I mean, you're not going to do any good. First of all, you were in a room full of corpses. I was up against somebody who was in a drunken rage. You know, that's silly. I know better. I kept saying to myself, Shanti, you worked with these people. You know nothing. They probably won't even remember tomorrow. You know, really, literally. But when he said that, but why? And it just came to me, Shanti, this is nothing but your ego. You know, it was calming. I don't know how you felt when you woke up, because your situation's scary. Mine was scary in a way. I mean, when's the last time you were in a morgue with 20 bodies? You know, it's frightening. But it's calming to realize, wait a minute, that's my ego. I think particularly now in our lives, I know how to deal with that. Just the way that Swamiji said to Kirtani, don't say it. You know, I remember once Swamiji was here, and he was about to do a big program. This is just a riff off of your story, but it's all beautiful, so what difference does it make? He was very, very sick. He was staying in David Nash's place, and they were still in 108. And he was upstairs, and somebody had said to me, can you come and see Swamiji? He's really sick. And so first thing I did was I called Peter, because I knew everybody would want me, because Dr. Peter takes care of him all the time. So I quickly called Peter, found out what medicines he was on, all like that. Then I went upstairs, and Swamiji was so sick. He was burning hot, and I mean it. It scared me a little bit, that I felt his fever was that high. And he just, Swamiji, how are you? He said, I am miserable. That's what he said, I'm miserable. He did. I feel miserable. He said, I feel miserable. So I said, Swamiji, I've spoken to Peter, and I said, we need to get your temperature down. That's very important. So I'm going to ask a couple of people to get really cold rags and put them on the back of your neck and all over your head. Is that okay? He says, it sounds utterly awful, but go ahead. He was being adorable even in his sickness. But the minute I started to say to him, Swamiji, you don't have like that. Shanti, I'm going down there. Because he was about to come out and give a big talk for us out on the green. You don't have Shanti, I'm going down there. Okay, Swamiji, let us get your fever down first. I mean, it was interesting. There was not allowing, because you feel it. Once you let that seed in, and just, you can't even watch your mind how quickly it can happen. But the wisdom of that, don't let it in. And it's so seductive. That's the thing. When we let in how much we enjoy those moods, that criticism, that this, that we do. There's a part of us that wants to go there, and to resist it and say, I'm not going to get into the negative place right now. Absolutely not. That takes so much strength, so much commitment to the path, so much willpower. And I'll just read this to you. Let me see if I can find it quickly. This is where I want to be. Yeah. These are notes from writings of Master. So I'm actually reading to you a lot of his words. And he's talking about change. What is the title of this whole... I just want to find this. This is in a section of Master's work called Tools for Dealing with Change. So this is all about change, of course. And I'm going to skip through a lot. I might come back to it. And as he just talks about what does it mean to commit yourself to be happy under all circumstances. But then Master talks about it, happy under all. It's very powerful to read this again. You know, that, as I said, deceptively simple, but boy, it's not easy. So he says that one of the subsections is the proper use of will. We can't really understand the subject of change, Master says, without understanding its relationship to willpower. One might say that the science of religion, so this must be something that Swamiji wrote, I'm sorry, that Paramhansa Yogananda brought to the West, is the science of the proper use of will, which is enormous. What they're saying, that will is everything. All of self-realization depends on the proper use of our will, that which has been given to us as human beings that never before in any of our previous incarnations until we attained the human state did we have that same use of this. So that the science of religion that he taught is the science of proper use of will. And it says, the philosophy and various techniques that Yogananda brought are the pearls. That's what Swamiji says. He says, the string that binds them into a single necklace, the science that goes through all of his teachings is the proper use of will. Yogananda said, every test is a challenge to see if our will can be broken. Every test, it means every bit, that's a quote, every time we're presented with change because change is challenging. There's a book that I'm trying to pull up right now, but it's not coming, that I want to say that's all about change. That is I used to read this book before I gave any talk, before I was part of Ananda, and I used to be out doing self-motivational speaking. And I always read at least 2 or 3 chapters from this book on change, because change is so hard. People will sit in painful circumstances for lifetimes. And I'm speaking to therapists mostly in this group, so everybody's shaking their head. That's funny, I just realized. But it's true, we all know it. And you want to say, no, but if you just do it this way instead of that way, you know? And there was a quote, I won't get this right, but I will try and bring it back in 2 weeks, that it says something like, no matter how uncomfortable you are where you're seated, but it made it clear that it's talking about physically being seated on a hard place, you would rather stay there than risk the change to move to a more comfortable position. That doesn't do what it should do for that quote. It's a great quote. I'll find it and bring it. But, so here Master is telling us every single test that we go through. And it came up because I was saying how much courage it takes to face changes like this. And then I was saying how much willpower and willingness. We have to stay so conscious to be willing to change. And the experience that I'm having in my life, in this moment of my life, this year, let's say, so whatever new stuff has been exposed, is I feel like I'm up against or wrestling with at times, more than noticing, just how much power to hold on each vritti has. And I feel it's like vritti by vritti. And it doesn't feel, where was I just saying this? Here? No. But it's not like a vritti, like a sweet little whirlpool of energy. Did I say that here tonight already? No. It feels like a bone spur. That's what it feels like something's wrapped around a spur. And it's like, darn it, let it go. But it's strong in there, really strong. And, oh yeah, I was saying it with a client this morning. She looked at me like I was nuts. She actually had no idea what I was talking about, but you all do. You know, we talk about these whirlpools of vrittis. It sounds like you're going for a little ride down this stream. No, it is not like that. We have worn these vrittis so deep after 1,000,000 lifetimes. Now we're saying, I'm just going to look at whatever life brings, like bring it on. I know it's all God's love. Sounds beautiful. Boy, is it hard. Worthwhile, that's for sure, but challenging. Anybody else have anything? No. So, how about if we, Kamala Devi, do you want to say anything? Yeah. Okay, well, you're also ironing, so it's complicated. That's very sweet. Okay, we'll end for tonight, and I'm pretty sure that we'll do a second week with the power of change because, you know, a page looks like this on the computer, and I'm this far down it. There's so many more of these wonderful quotes of masters and Swamiji. So thank you, and thank you all for all of you who are online. Very glad that you were with us.